for joining us, everyone. This is Gwenda, the fearless prophet of truth. When ethics and morals have been disregarded, the whole of humanity is placed in peril. And in the hands of power, greed, and control-hungry people, then the graciousness of humanity is lost. And the greatest foundations of humanity is morals and ethics. Without these foundations, the very fabric of humanity is torn apart. We have seen lots of attacks on our morals, ethics, and our foundations in these last 3 years. Today, I am delighted to be talking with Dr. William Bay, who is going to share with us his journey through this last 3 years of his ethics and morals being torn apart, and bring to you some new perspectives, which, as you know, as the fearless prophet of truth is a favourite of mine, that it's very important that we have people that have tremendous courage, that stand in a place of strong ethics and morals. So welcome, William. It's a delight to have you here.
Yes, thanks for having me on, Gwenda. It's a pleasure to be here also.
Yeah, sure is from this side. You have such a tremendous courage, and I've admired you since the day I saw you walk out of the AMA conference, and having been a nurse for a long time, it made me applaud you, and I've followed you ever since, and it's a delight to be able to actually talk to you and talk to you more about the things that have driven you along this path. Now, I'm right into consciousness and the power of healing and being aligned with a being that I call God. It's very important to me. It's a big part of my life. And I read in your beautiful biography that you went down the path of being a monk. What can you share with us about that?
Yeah, so after I had undertaken a good period of pursuit of material wealth and success, I was a salesperson working for iPrimus, a telecommunications company. I was doing quite well selling telecommunications door around the turn of the 21st century. And what that lifestyle led me to was a lot of pursuit of women, money, power, drugs, all these things that really, at the end of the day, don't make people happy, in my opinion. And I recognize that things are going a little bit astray. So one day I quit from my job as a salesperson, as the sales manager for the Brisbane office, actually, and decided that I would go do something different. And it was actually at my next job interview where the interviewer, the owner of the real estate agency that I was applying to, said that, look, I'm happy to employ you, but I feel like something is telling me that you need to go meditate instead. And
wow.
he reminded yeah, that was quite interesting. And
in an interview.
In an interview, yes, that's right. And he was correct, because I had actually tried to go to a meditation center during university, and I had got on the wrong train and ended up in the wrong place, and never actually attended that meditation center about 3 years previously. And I'd forgotten all about it. As I said, I've been involved in business, marketing, selling, and all that things. And then he reminded me all about that. So as soon as he said that, bang, it came back to me, and I knew what I needed to do immediately, which was to attend that center. So I said, thank you very much for the job offer, but I'm going to take your second offer instead, and I'm going to go meditate immediately. And then the next day I did. I went straight to my local Vipassana meditation center and started living like a monk for many, many months, if not years, and getting deep into my spiritual side, which is what I discovered who I am. I came to this realization at the deep core of me was spirituality.
Yes, it is, isn't it? That's the place where all wonders reside. So this path you've been on for the last 3 years really kind of tips that balance quite a bit and challenges, being able to stay in that place for a lot of people. But when you have done this path for some time, it's easier to be able to maintain that balance. What have you done through your meditation to maintain yourself through this last 3 years?
Well, the meditation that I had been engaging in was about truth, about not stealing, about acting morally, about not spreading lies to other people, not taking drugs, etc. So the foundation of the meditation is quite simple, actually, and it's just some key 5 principles to abide by, and the rest is stillness of the mind and then awareness of the reality within your own mind-body system. So it was a very strong and excellent foundation for the work that I did fighting against the New World Order and the forced injection of things into people's arms and bodies over the last few years. And it was also instrumental in my reacquaintance with God and, in my opinion, Jesus, because without that meditational, foundational training to let go of material things, I might have easily missed him and followed the money instead, Gwenda. So that's why I'm very thankful I had that foundational training in meditation to begin with.
I think it was pre-planned, William. I think it was pre-planned so that you would have a very strong foundation, because Lord knows you need it when you're going to take on the likes of the greed, control freaks that want to overpower humanity and overpower everything that the human being is about. So again, that's why you're my hero. That's what I love about it. Now, one thing that I really enjoyed looking at during all of this fun and games was the doctor's Hippocratic Oath. Because when I began nursing, we actually had to take an oath, and I still live to that oath to this day. But we are talking in the 70s. And I believe nurses no longer take an oath or an oath the same as mine was. Mine was actually one that we had to agree to or take for our lifetime. So I still uphold my oath of maintaining and sustaining life to the best of my ability at any time. So I will stop to someone that is in need and I will attend to them. In recent years, I saw a man attacked in a public place, and I was actually sitting with a fellow nurse. She turned her back. I didn't. I went and saw to him, administered first aid, and waited for the ambos, who used to come very quickly then. And she would have no part of it. And I was disgusted, to be honest. Disgusted. So I've got some notes here, William, on the historic change to the Declaration of Geneva. And I found it really interesting looking at the Hippocratic Oath for doctors. And once upon a time, it was sworn to God, essentially. And now this newer one refers to the science. So you will swear to uphold the science and all the forefathers of science that have come before you. Fascinating words, very fascinating words. And this was the recent World Medical Association. This one is from 2017, by the way. And it was the oath sworn by doctors was updated to reflect the importance of doctors attending to their own health. Their own health is what it states. And at the time, the AMA president was Dr. Michael Gannon, and he was in attendance at this historic change. What do you have to say about the Hippocratic Oath, Dr. Bay?
Well, a lot of the public think that doctors in Australia have taken the Hippocratic Oath. I think that almost exclusively hasn't happened. I don't think there would be a single doctor, not a single doctor in Australia ever taken the Hippocratic Oath, because the Hippocratic Oath is based on the teachings of Hippocrates, before the time of Christ. And I don't think that any of the doctors were taking such an ancient oath. Perhaps some of the doctors in Australia have taken that physician's pledge,
Yep.
that declaration by Geneva reference to. I didn't. And I've spoken to a lot of doctors and they have taken neither or none. It's a misconception in Australia that doctors take these oaths. And so I think that that's something that is helpful for people to understand why their doctors may, in fact, be lying to them. Doctors are lying to their patients because, on the one hand, they don't have an oath that they need to fill their conscience or their God or their about. And on the other hand, you have AHPRA, Australia's medical regulator, saying that you must lie to your patients. That is the law. That is the instruction. That is the rules. So as a human being, if you don't have an oath counterbalancing an instruction from a powerful government bully to lie to your patients, what are you going to do? Most people are probably going to lie. And I understand that. I don't fully excuse it, but I do understand it. And that is why we are in the situation where we are today, where people cannot and should not trust their doctors anymore, because people need to know that they're not fulfilling an oath to their patients. They don't even have a fiduciary duty to their patients. And in fact, there's a law stating two things. One, you have to always say the COVID injectables are great, and you cannot criticize the government. And the other law is the Health Practitioner Regulation National Law, which in Section 3A, the guiding principle, says the paramount consideration for doctors is protection of the public. Now, what is that? It's the greater good, it's communism, it's totalitarianism. Whatever it is, it certainly isn't you. It's not your best interest. It's not your allergies. It's not your history. It's not your surgical history, etc., etc. So people really understand that they should not, cannot, and will not trust their doctors until the system is reformed. That is my advice to the people of Australia.
I think that is just awesome, and I think it's why I raised it with you, because there are so many things that the general person, the everyday person, simply is not aware of, because they have become so used to living their life according to rules and legislations, not according to ethics and morals. I mean, just have a look at the things that are being done with children presently. So it's tremendously interesting, and I just want to add to what Dr. Bayes said there, because I have in my hand the AMA, that's the Australian Medical Association, adopts the WMA, World Medical Association, Declaration of Geneva. So yes, this was 2006. So I'm going to go hunting now and find when that all went by the by. And it states that the AMA has adopted the World Medical Association Declaration of Geneva as a contemporary companion to the 2,500-year-old Hippocratic Oath for doctors to declare their commitment to their profession, their patients, and humanity. These words mean a lot to me because of the oath I took as a nurse and what we had to do. So back then, I solemnly pledged to consecrate my life to the service of humanity. I will give to my teachers the respect and gratitude that is their due. This is nothing like the original Hippocratic Oath. I will practice my profession with conscience, and dignity. The health of my patient will be my first consideration. I will respect the secrets that are confided in me even after the patient has died. I will maintain by all the means in my power the honour and the noble traditions of the medical profession. I'm not sure about those noble traditions, especially after what you were just helping us to understand. My colleagues will be my sisters and brothers. I will not permit considerations of age, disease, disability, creed, ethnic origin, gender, nationality, political affiliation, race, sexual orientation, social standing, or any other factor to intervene between my duty and my patient. I will maintain the utmost respect for human life. I will not use my medical knowledge to violate human rights and civil liberties, even under threat. And that's the sentence I love most. I make
Now,
these promises
even though,
solemnly and freely.
even though we don't have oaths or this oath in Australia as doctors, I would love it if doctors would abide by these principles that you just discussed. I would love it if doctors would put the health and well-being of their patients first. I would love it even further if the law put the health and the well-being of their patients first. But unfortunately, that's not the case, and that's the entire reason why I am in the High Court of Australia right now, fighting a matter against AHPRA and Medical Board of Australia and, in fact, the state of Queensland. Those are my three opponents, because they believe that the health of patients comes last.
Way down the list.
I don't. And that is what the fight is about. Who is going to win? Who is on top? Is it the patient or the government? And that's what the people of Australia need to wake up and understand, is that I'm not fighting for my job in the High Court. I'm fighting for everybody's lives. That's what it boils down to. This is so important, and we must support each other to get this case a victory, because if it loses, then you can never trust your medical profession, or in fact any health profession again, because the law will be law, and the law says that public safety, public confidence, public propaganda goes first.
Yeah. Whereas the future of humanity, which is what I'm very keen and dedicated to, is what should be priority. And the only way that's going to happen is for people like yourself to stand up and bring the truth forward. I love the name of your party, by the way, Freedom and Truth Australia. I think that's brilliant. So when we go down the path of having a look at not just the organisations that you're up against, which is predominantly the government, who default to the likes of WHO, as in the organisation WHO, but they also default to the World Bank. Now, if people aren't familiar of the World Bank's participation and how they fit into this picture, what Dr. Bay is up against is a tremendous funnel that goes upward, upward, upward. So taking on the likes of AHPRA, who fascinate me with their claim to have respect and dignity. But anyway, that's what they write. So I guess you can write anything, hey, Dr. Bay. It works that way, and doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, whilst the World Health Organization, the World Economic Forum, etc., are pushing people around in a top-down hierarchical approach, a pyramidal structure, the great thing is it only takes one person, whether it's you, Gwenda, or another person listening to this program, or myself, to shake the entire foundation up, to shake the entire pyramid up, because a pyramid, no matter how big, how large, rests on its base. And we, the people, are at its base. So by not complying, as I'm doing in the High Court, I am literally tearing this entire world order structure down.
Yeah, and we just need more people to understand, to start to question. And that's something that I have just found incredible to see, not enough people questioning on these things. And this is why I want to bring forward more about your pathway, and for people to understand that you're not trying to go against a system for the fun of it, that you are someone who is holding the future of humanity very precious to you and trying to be of assistance, as are those of us that have stepped up and spoken out. So something else that people might not be aware of, and this historical information is important because it goes to a greater understanding of what you are doing. And I'd like to know where your peers are, by the way, how many thousands of them, where they are, why they're not speaking out. So you can go to the World Health Organization And they have got their archive document, which I did actually print off at the beginning. And when you're thinking about why Dr. William Bay is doing what he's doing, please consider that on the 31st of December 2019, right, 2019, the Wuhan Municipal Health Commission of China reported a cluster of pneumonia in Wuhan. A novel coronavirus was eventually identified. Please go and read these things for yourself so you can see why you need to be behind Dr. William Bay and supporting him in this path, because goes on to say pneumonia of unknown cause. Now they contradict themselves immediately. On the 31st of December 2019, the WHO China Country Office was informed of cases of pneumonia of unknown etiology, which means unknown cause. There were, by January the 3rd, 44 patients with pneumonia. Have we never heard of pneumonia before? But an unknown etiology. Of the 44 cases reported, 11 are seriously ill, while the remaining 33 are in stable conditions. Right? That was December 31st. And yet, by the 2nd of January, WHO called a pandemic. They did not have the etiology of that pneumonia. They did not have thousands of deaths, and yet they called it. Now, if that doesn't make you ask questions and come across and listen to Dr. William Bay and find out more about the reason truth is so important, then I don't know what we're going to do with you. So on the 1st of January 2020, WHO had set up their incident management support team. By January 4th, WHO reported on social media that there was a cluster case of pneumonia cases with no deaths, right? No deaths. Of that 44 people, no deaths. And they reported that on social media. January 5th, 24 hours later, they published their first disease outbreak news on the new virus. People, this is something you need to understand. It is worth looking at the historical evidence in this so that we, the people on the bottom of that pyramid, can really come together and come from a place where you want to drive the future of humanity to be what it should be. And that is a place of ethics and morals and truth. So for you, Dr. William Bay, going forward, you have got a dinner coming up in Sydney this Saturday night. You will be joined by a couple of other people, Dr. Miley Tran, is that right, Tran? And Dylan Oakley, Trin, and the three of you will be speaking. And I'm asking everyone that's watching this, please share it far and wide, go and get the poster, let people know that they can go and hear these doctors of ethics, truth, and morals share with you the way that you can be a contributor to a better world and a future that is one of loving embrace for humanity. You can find your tickets at Freedom Doctors Dinner at humantix.com, and that's humantix.com. Please do support this event. Go along, share it with everyone, and, even take people, well, not even take people that are sitting on the fence that still haven't decided, they don't know which way they want to go with this. Dr. Bay, of all the things that you've seen, excuse me, in your time as a doctor, would you ever have thought that you would see such a thing where you would be required to be untruthful and to create panic and fear in your patients?
No, I did not, because when I was in medical school and then working as a junior doctor, the biggest crime you could commit was telling a lie. That was the quickest and easiest and surest way to be removed from the medical profession and to never get a job again and to never get promoted, was to lie to your colleagues or to your patients or to anybody else for that matter. It was so serious. It was so serious. Everybody was deathly afraid of lying. I remember the fear greatly. You had to be extremely careful, whatever you wrote or said to anybody as a doctor. And so for them to then turn that around and instruct lying on the 9th of March, 2021 via the action statement by up the boards was a complete shock to myself and I'm sure to many doctors. It's just such an absolute tragedy that even though we had all these doctors and nurses, I would suspect as well, committed to helping their patients and telling the truth, how did we all suddenly just accept it, go along with this instruction to lie? It is an amazing experiment in psychological warfare and deception that the government was able to convince 825,000 registered health practitioners overnight to lie to their patients. That is the great conspiracy. That is the great cover-up, and that is what must be studied, looked into. How do we all fall for that? Not all of us, as you know, but the overwhelming majority of us. It's such a shame that we betrayed the other 24 million Australians. It really is. And that's why the trust in the health professions is suffering greatly, because people know that consciously or subconsciously that their doctors and their nurses have unfortunately lied to them. However, we can recover from that. We can rebuild that trust, but it begins with accepting and repenting that we, as a profession, have made that mistake. We have been tricked. We have been deceived by AHPRA. So I think the plan forward is to remove AHPRA as a legitimate government agency, to dismantle or amend the Health Practitioner National Law to remove this insane provision that you do not put the patient's health first. And then, and only then, can we start rebuilding trust in the health profession in this country and indeed around the world.
And bring doctors back to their principles of really looking into the treatments they're offering also, instead of being so very tied up with the pharmaceutical companies. I know as a nurse, and I know as working in the pharmaceutical industry for a while, it's not something that I could stay in because of the way it is, that doctors get paid to experiment with new medications that come out. There was all sorts of fancy things done to get doctors to support a new medication. And I think that people need to start asking more questions about medications that their doctors are putting them on as well. Understand better.
The TGA, the Therapeutic Goods Administration, Secretary of the Department of Health receives, did you hear what I said? That was a Freudian slip, Department of Hell. 90% of funding from pharmaceutical companies. That tells you all you need to know, really. So,
absolutely.
Conflict of interest. We can't. We must stop that. We must stop the TGA. We must stop ATAGI. We must stop AHPRA, and we must stop the national. Once we do that, we can start trusting our medical profession again. Until then, I will continue to stop taking my blood pressure medication as a matter of principle, if nothing else.
Well, you're building a mighty big heart that's a lot stronger in better ways in any case, and that's more important. So with everything that we've talked about there in relation to ATAGI and the TGA, I mean, gosh, I could go off on a tangent with that. I do want to read to you Mr. Morrison's quote. This is his quote. "We are all responsible for our own health, and when it comes to informed consent, giving consent to whatever treatment or procedure I may have, I am ultimately responsible for people doing health treatments to me. And the opportunity to visit the general practitioner, to have a consultation, is the opportunity the government provided and funded so that the informed consent process, which provides the opportunity for the individual to make their decision, that's the sort of country we live in, because people make their own decisions about their health and their own bodies. And this is why we don't have mandatory jab, jab. With relation to the general population, people make their own decision. We make it for people to make their own decision with such information as possible. Isn't that a very refreshing and wonderful statement?
Yeah.
Had that informed consent go in 2021, 2022, even now?
Yeah. People are trying to rewrite history and suggest that all Australians had maximum freedom of choice with the cookies, with the mRNA injectables, that they were able to choose them freely. There was no coercion. You didn't need them to go to a pub. You didn't need them to fly overseas. You didn't need them for healthcare. It was all just a dream. It's all just a loony boony tinfoil hat wearing conspiracy, right? But and the government is trying to tell people now. It's amazing the lengths of lies and deceptions they will go to try and get their way. And I believe that's the reason we are seeing the ACMA disinformation, misinformation bill, is because they know that what they have to do now is cover their tracks. And the biggest threat to covering their tracks from all the crime and harm that has been caused by these injectables is the truth. And that's why truth is enemy number one for the government. And that is why truth is our best weapon in this spiritual and ethical war against the forces of darkness, because truth will win. And the great thing about truth is it doesn't cost us anything. We don't need to make it up. All we need to do is spread it around, shine some light on it, and we will win.
Too right, we will. Truth will always prevail and God's light will always prevail. So the darkness can do its best, but which it's doing presently, trying hard. That's, that quote from the illustrious Prime Minister, former Prime Minister, Mr. Albanese, by Scott Morrison, I think that should also extend across to the doctors. It did, didn't it? So you all had the ability to make informed consent for your patients. It's an interesting play on words, which is what we've seen over the last 3 years, tremendous play on words. So your fight, this pathway that you're on, when we take down the likes of AHPRA, ATAGI, TGA, and the health department, and anyone else in the government that supports all this trash, how can we rebuild, or no, we don't even want to rebuild it, how can we build a medical field that is built on principles like it used to be? I worked with phenomenal surgeons when I was a scrub nurse in the theatre. Their standards, their ethics were phenomenal, and their dedication, and they were skillful. They were amazing, and yet the injuries, the deaths, the things that happen and have been happening in the last so many years is unfathomable for me. I never saw such things take place. So to start again and bring it back to being the wonders that it really should be is going to take a fair bit of work, isn't it?
Maybe, or perhaps it might be a very simple and easy thing, because we just have to use the weapons of the enemy. So they've created an entire ungodly and evil system by legislating evil things. So for us to have a good and godly system, we just must legislate good things. It's really as simple as going to Section 3A of the Health Practitioner Regulation National Law in Queensland, removing the bit where it says that the public and the propaganda and the confidence is the most important thing, just amending that law and sticking in there that the patient is the most important thing, that informed consent is the most important thing, that the truth is the most
Yeah.
important thing. If you put those three things in the national law and then remove the lie that it's a national law, because it's not a national law, it's actually a state law masquerading as a national law, pretending to overtake the country. If you put it back to state laws and put in those key principles about truth, respect for patients, and informed consent, then we will have a good system again, because most doctors and nurses, as you know, Gwenda, they do want to help people. The problem is government is getting in the way between the doctor and the nurse and the patient.
Yes.
So change the government, change the law to make it the doctor's right and the nurse's right again to help their patient, and we can have a good system again.
What intrigues me about that, Dr. Bay, is how easy it was for them to do that with the doctors and nurses, how easy it was for them to walk over the top of them and make them believe that they had to listen to it. That part I just can't sit with ease. I've always been outspoken. I spoke against changes in our work back in the 70s. So I guess it's nothing new for me, but to see so many of the nurses and doctors play this game has really gobsmacked me, to be honest.
Well, they were put in a very difficult position where they had to choose between doing what's best for their patients on one hand and then following the law on the other hand. So for a profession that was used to following the law, it's hard to blame, I guess, nurses and doctors for following the law. So that's why I'm working so hard in the High Court as a self-represented applicant to demonstrate to the High Court to get them to hopefully rule that the national law is in fact not a law. Once that national law is ruled not a law, then that instantly frees all the health practitioners from doing the right thing. So at the moment, they are coerced by the law into being evil. We break that law, bond over them, that gag over them, and then, and truly only then, can we actually blame the doctors and nurses for being doing the wrong thing then. Until then, they are excused, I would have to say. But once that law is broken, then we will see every doctor and nurse's true colours shine through.
Oh, well, I look forward to that day, I can tell you that. Very much so. And you're more gracious than myself. So, Dr. Bay, you are leader of the Freedom and Truth Australia. Is it a party and an organisation? How can we get involved?
Well, I really would like to win that court case for the reasons I've just explained. So if anybody would like to help me out with that, it's important that you do so I can continue with that fight. And the way to do that is to support me financially or sharing my webpage so other people can support me financially. And you can support me financially by going to www.qpp.life, Q for Queensland, P for people, P for protest, qpp.life, LIFE, F for freedom, qpp.life/donate, and even $5 will be enough to help me take this monstrosity of AHPRA down.
Fantastic. And I think we should bring you across to the through the West, have you over here. So we'll get busy with that if you're happy to come across the border.
Sure, absolutely. Absolutely. Australia is nothing but nothing but a collection of different peoples across different states and territories. So it's absolutely vital we share the love and share the information, just like Michael Griffiths has been doing around Western Australia. So I'd love to come over. You build it, he will come, they say.
Excellent. You be the mountain, I'll bring it here. That'd be great. So on that note, everyone, what I'd really like you to do, we're going to put the link to support Dr. William Bay. I'll put that in the description for you to go to. Share the event, the dinner that's on this Saturday in Sydney. Please share it far and wide. And then get together with me, those of you in the West or anywhere really around Australia, to support us bringing Dr. William Bay over to Perth to do an event with him here. Bringing truth, bringing ethics, bringing morals, and most of all, supporting him, as he has been the most prominent and courageous fighter for you. For you. He's not doing it for anyone else. He's doing it for, as I see it, the whole of humanity, really, but beginning here on our own doorstep. Dr. William Bay, thank you so much for your time today, sharing with us. Is there anything you would like to close with?
just that if we keep speaking out, keep exercising our freedom of speech, keep believing in God, ethics, or both, then we will win.
Yeah, we sure will. Thanks so much, Dr. Bay. Have a beautiful day.
Bye-bye.